Hey guys, as promised, we're back for part 2 of the top war defenses. We're going to be looking at positions 5 through 1. We're going to go over positioning, T4s, Iso8, counters, and some different kind of hybrids. And at the end, we'll touch on some teams that probably should make this list but haven't, and definitely will in the future. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Coming in at number 5, we have Cloak and Dagger. Yes, just the two-person team. They're so strong and they have such a variety of hybrids that work with them that they had to claim the spot. They could have been number 6 and Surfer Mercs could have been here. That's how close these two teams are as far as pulling defensive wins go, but I just threw them in at number 5. So first things first, let's talk Iso8 and T4 on these two, who are the heart and soul of whatever team you're going to compile with them. So for Dagger, you want the special and the ultimate, and you want her as a striker. For Cloak, everything but the basic, and you want him as a skirmisher. If you want to cheap out, you cannot do the Cloak special. And I will touch right now that, as like the last video, these are the T4s I recommend for war defense. Not for raid, not for arena, not for crucible, not for anything coming down the pipe. So, that's 2 people on this team. There's a bunch of variations that make this team super strong. So I have 9 characters over here in the far right corner. Bunch of different variations of them you can see at any point in time, and they all work. Obviously, you're not going to have Yo-Yo and Drax on the same team, and if you're going to have the Brotherhood members, you're going to have all 3 of them. We'll touch on that variation in a second. The most common one I see is Drax Shuri, that's 4, and then Silver Surfer or Deathpool filling that last spot. That's very strong. It puts the Drax pre-taunt to protect Cloak and Dagger, so they can try and get their turn off. Shuri's going to give them defense up, so if somebody does get through the Drax, they still have to beat through the defense up. Not to mention, it can give energy to Dagger, who can then ult off the bat and crush the enemy team. And then Surfer, who's probably the best 5th in that team, he's kind of a contingency plan. If they're able to kill Cloak or Dagger, or they're able to cleanse the ult off, or whatever, Surfer's going to come in, he can put the ability block on the right target, or if they kill Cloak and Dagger before Surfer's turn, he's going to have that offense up, devastating damage. And obviously there's some synergy with Deathpool, though I think she's just kind of raw damage. She's a blunt object on this team, so not very impressive there. And then there's the Yo-Yo Black Bolt. You'd obviously put them together. You'd probably put them together with Shuri or Surfer. So very strong teams, but the most interesting one, and I kind of lifted this from Mutiny in our last war, is Brotherhood. So shout out to them. They have some very, very great theory crafters. I know Evdog, the leader, he's a brilliant mind, a brilliant special kind of guy. But this team is very, very good. It actually has much less counters. When you're tackling that team, you have to find a way to get around the Blob, who does the same kind of role as Drax, but he has increased resistance, and more people have him built up. So it's an interesting use for the Brotherhood, and that's a team that doesn't seem to go away from war defense just because of how they work mechanically. So they might be somebody we need to look at and talk about in the future. But as far as counters go, Shadowlands will counter any of these teams. Kind of funny that I say that because I did lose against the New Warriors Brotherhood team in my last war against Mutiny, and the reason I lost is because I have the wrong ISO on Moon Knight. You want him as a skirmisher, that's going to help you get through a blob. I had a 7 red star blob I was facing. Moon Knight as a raider, he does peel buffs off, but he just didn't have enough to get the through the resist check of blobs. So you're going to want him as a skirmisher. But the idea there is you'll kill any kind of pre-taunt, and then kill Dagger. Don't go to kill Cloak. Night Nurse will flip all this stuff off Cloak. There is kind of a what's going to happen moment after Cloak does use his ultimate, and Deathpool will have done her thing as well, and if somebody dies, then you're in trouble. But by killing Dagger, Cloak's ultimate hits for very, very little, Night Nurse would flip it, and you'd be fine there. Even on other teams, I would suggest going for the Dagger first, just because it negates the damage coming from Cloak, and she can't dodge. There's nothing worse than blowing your load, and Cloak dodges everything, and then you still have to deal with both characters and all the incoming damage. Then we have the Dark Hunters. Dark Hunters crush this team. You could have problems if the taunt is on a position that's not in a corner, and you can't get the hits on both Cloak and Dagger, though you really just kind of wanted that turn 1 blind anyway, and then you'll probably rip through them still. Dark Hunters wouldn't work against Brotherhood, the Brotherhood version though, they just wouldn't. So that's why they work, because of that passive where Morbius puts blind on city heroes, kind of negates their opening Cloak and Dagger, which is a big part of their kit. So they're great there, but they have a much more important use that we're going to get to later on in the video. Then we have some soft counters. X Factor, especially Z Factor, works amazing here. They have a lot of just burst damage. They get that speed revving up. Longshot has those attacks that can't be dodged, but most importantly, you're just going to be able to kill Dagger before Cloak does anything, and you'll have a bunch of multiple men there to protect you. Obviously, if you're using multiple men, watch out for Death Pool. So you got to know a little bit when facing this team. Then there's the Uncanny X-Men. Phoenix sucks everything in, or Magic will go ahead and put a lot of barrier out there. Storm will get stuns out. It's a very strong team. It's a soft counter, though, because if the wrong Uncanny dies at the wrong time, you're toast. And then there's the Secret Avengers Kestrel. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of these teams in the previous video as well, right? They can only take one team per war, so you got to be careful who you pick. But Secret Avengers Kestrel can also run through this team fairly easily. They just get a big speed advantage, and they, through Kestrel pings, just start pinging people off like crazy. So that is number 5, a Cloak and Dagger hybrid. Next, we have Marauders. Yes, guys, sometimes it only takes one new character to bring a team back to prominence. Madeline Pryor is in the game now. This team is no joke. The counters are super limited, so you need to be careful when tackling this team, especially when they get bigger. We'll talk about counters in a little bit. Let's talk about T4s, Iso8, and positioning first. So, I like my Madeline in the corner. She's my smallest character, as far away from Strife as possible. Followed by Mystique, who's a stealthing, so if the enemy does decide to go for Madeline, they don't have the access to chain attacks, right? Then I like Sinister in the middle, just because he needs to go somewhere. Emma in the back corner, adjacent to Strife, because I like her in diamond form. Any kind of adjacent damage she might take will be mitigated by all that armor she gets. And then finally, Strife in the corner. T4s. Madeline, everything but the special. Madeline's special is just damage, and her damage seems very lackluster right now. I'm talking about like a teal geared 6 red, 6 yellow Madeline, not doing as much damage as I would have liked. We'll see how that goes in a live war. That's in practice, so take that as a caveat. For Mystique, I really like the ultimate. It makes the tricked opponent do more damage, and I like that passive. It helps her. Makes sure that she doesn't attack on every single non-attacking ability, which is great because when Stripe does his taunt right away, she'll go attack and strip some buffs. Very important. For Sinister, everything but the basic. It just makes Sinister's kit work, especially that ultimate. For Emma, everything but the basic. Again, you just need all that. The passive, you can't sleep on the passive anymore. You used to be able to because it was a lot of defense up. It is what it is. But now you need that defense up on Strife. With his extra resistance, that defense up plays an even bigger role. And then for Strife, you really just need the passive, though the ultimate has good value, because if he makes it to use his ultimate, that extra damage is pretty legit. Then we need to talk about ISO. So we kind of have a split ISO on Madeline again. Here's the thing. I said Madeline's damage is lackluster, I mean it, but she's attacking a lot with her passive, and her ultimate hits really hard. There's no denying that, but her special is what lacks. I've had characters just live on the very brink, and if the enemy was Striker, I think I would have lost that character. And I'm talking about the 6 red, 6 yellow that I was practicing against. So I would like Striker on Madeline's that are big like that. I think that would be very, very impactful, and I think that ultimate will then nuke someone off the map. But a Madeline like mine, who's I think 3 red, 3 yellow right now, I need her as a skirmisher. I need her to land her special abilities. So it's going to depend, kind of like Star-Lord T'Challa, how big your new character is. How big is your new Madeline? If she's really, really big, go with Striker. If she's not so big, go with Skirmisher. And obviously, she would be my only Striker on this team, so you want to have at least one. For Mystique, I like her as a Skirmisher. She gets that vulnerable out right away. It's just a really good ability. A really good ISO choice for her. Sinister, I like Healer. he heals. It's good. We want to get this team to out-sustain and kind of drain down enemies. For Emma, I like healer as well, though skirmisher would be fine. Even striker would be okay because everything she does will make her ISO attack occur, and she'll flip buffs, which is pretty cool. But I don't think that's her primary function here, so I like her as a healer. Then for Strife, I like Fortifier. The defense up is a little redundant. The barrier can be redundant, but it could also save you in a pinch. So yeah, I like Fortifier. Then let's talk about counters. The true only hard counter that you will never lose, even doing like a 100k punch up, is Infinity Watch. You can go in there, you can hit auto, you can get your win. I'm not joking. This is the 4th best ward defense team in the game right now. That is not a waste of Infinity Watch. Then we have some soft counters. Kestrel is a counter even of herself. She works best with Secret Avengers and X Factor. So this match can be won and lost on Strife blocking her ultimate. Her ultimate has 5,000% focus. It will not be resisted, but it can be blocked. And if it's blocked, you're in trouble. If he holds the taunt and holds the defense up, it could be really, really bad news for you. So I really like Secret Avengers Kestrel as a soft counter. If you're doing something crazy with your Infinity Watch, like having them on defense, because we have so many offensive options now, then yeah, Secret Avengers Kestrel will probably be your most efficient use. Anyway, guys, that's number 4, the new Marauders.
Sugar, spice, and everything nice. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect little girl.
Coming in at number 3, the Young Avengers. Yes, they're such a strong team, and they have a lot of value outside ward defense too. But they needed to make this list because of how good they are on ward defense. Let's jump in right away, talk about the positioning. It's going to be a little controversial because there's a bunch of different options, right? Because of the way America Chavez's passive works. I like the traditional sense, what I consider the traditional sense, by having Echo and Kate beside her. A lot of the teams that counter them are either going to win off the bat and no one's going to get a turn anyway, or having them in that position is going to poise you in the best scenario to regain control of the fight and go to town on them. Because if you have a Squirrel Girl beside Chavez, which is a very popular thing to do, she's going to pop off with her special right away. Not going to heal anybody, obviously, like that. Mind you, she's not going to use her special first turn regardless, because Kate is going to give her energy. But I digress. It's just, this is the way I found the most cumbersome to attack, and the way I've collected the most wins with this team. So we have Squirrel Girl next to Miss Marvel. The reason we don't have Miss Marvel in the corner is to counter Dark Hunters. We'll talk about that in a second. So yeah, Squirrel Girl, Miss Marvel, Echo in the middle. Echo's only in the middle because I value Kate more. So I'm hiding Kate in the corner. Then we have Chavez and Kate. So ISO's pretty basic. We're going to have Striker on everybody but Skirmisher on Miss Marvel because of that 3-tap interaction. Argument can be made for healer on Squirrel Girl. I don't hate that, but in my war defense teams, I like the idea of my team instantly killing somebody and then it becoming a 4v5 and then the person can't recover from it. And Striker on Squirrel Girl will help with that. Everything Squirrel Girl does, even her special, will trigger the ISO attack, so you're not missing out on that hit. So as far as counters go, the most efficient counter to this team is going to be an Eternals hybrid, whether that be with Loki Hela Falcon or Doom, Loki, Drax, stuff like that I've come up with myself, or with Emma, Loki. You're getting a speed advantage with your Eternals. That's one method to do it. Probably the most efficient and also the most risky against really, really big Young Avengers. Once you start getting to the 1.1, 1.2 million powered Young Avengers, that matchup can go sideways. I didn't talk about T4s. Let's backtrack. Sorry, T4s on Squirrel Girl. We want that special for the cleanse before the heal, and we want the passive. Miss Marvel want the passive to guarantee the assist and the 3-tap mechanic. On Echo, we want the special because they're opening ability, and we want the passive for more retaliation damage. America Chavez, we want the passive. Just, she needs that. Otherwise, she's not given the speed, and this team kind of falls apart. And then for Kate, we want everything but the special. Argument can be made for special. Definitely outside of war, you're going to want that special. But yeah, those are the T4s. And any additional T4s you put on this team are going to help it nuke somebody faster. We talked about that a little while ago. Killing somebody right away is a great way to win your war fights. So anything else you put on this team, especially with Chavez or Echo and Kate, is going to help get a kill. Very good luxury. Let's get back to some counter talk. Next, we have Weapon X. Weapon X is the best war team in the game. I don't think this is a smart use unless you don't see Dormammu's. If you're not seeing Dormammu's in your bracket, then this is a great use for Weapon X. Make sure you ability block Echo and let the bleeds do their thing. Trust in the bleeds. You're going to have to deal with Kate blinding people because of her passive, but the bleeds will work around it. So, ability block, Echo, trust in the bleeds, you'll be okay. Then we have the Dark Hunters. The Dark Hunters do work against this because they have the blind and trauma mechanic against Squirrel Girl and Miss Marvel, and the disrupt from Morbius. Because of the way you have to position around Chavez on this team, Dark Hunters are able to get the disrupts that they kind of want. Because more often than not, there's going to be Squirrel Girl or Miss Marvel in the corner. And even if not, the way I have it positioned, if I'm using Dark Hunters, I'm still going to target the Miss Marvel, and I'm going to hope it bounces to the right and hits the other three, flips their defense ups, and then I can kill Kate with my attacks from there, right? Disrupt on Miss Marvel, she's not going to get that taunt up. If it goes to the left, Dark Hunters are still okay. You just kill the Squirrel Girl in that case. So, Dark Hunters will work on this team in any kind of combination. Mind you, the 5th for Dark Hunters is uber important. You cannot use Mordo. You cannot use Namor. It has to be Hela. Greg's death is what triggers Morbius to go before everybody else. Those debuffs trigger Ghost Rider's passive, and then your entire Dark Hunter team is going to go first. And that's how you're able to kill a member. So if you are going to try using Dark Hunters here, make sure you have Hela as your 5th. Then we have some soft counters, and I should have said super soft counters. There is a cap on the Young Avenger team that makes these two guys over here no longer usable. That is around the 800, maybe even the 750k mark for your teams. Unless you're doing like a 300k punch down, you may be able to power through it then. But these guys do work. You will want Zemo with your X Factor. You want to hope to get some crits, get an ability block on Squirrel Girl, and do your thing. Likewise with Secret Avengers, you need to nuke Miss Marvel. I know, very strange, but you need to nuke Miss Marvel, otherwise you'll get stuck in a loop. Squirrel Girl will out-heal all your damage, and you'll lose. So, super soft counters, guys. Keep that in mind. That's Young Avengers coming in at number 3. Alright guys, coming in at number 2, you know they had to make this list. The Heroes for Hire team. Yes, they're here to stay. Does seem that we're getting some more counters for them in the game, which I think is a good thing. But they're necessary still. If you're trying to pull defensive wins, you need them to pull certain teams. They have some RNG factors against some of the counters that can lead to wins still. So let's talk about positioning. First, I like Shang-Chi in the corner with Misty, Luke Cage right in the dead center. He's there basically because of Dark Hunters now, right? Then we have Iron Fist and Colleen. So I like Colleen and Shang-Chi as far away from each other as possible. For Shang-Chi, everything but the basic. It's all very kit defining, and we like him as a raider. For Misty, I really like that basic, making sure the defense down lands that can cause RNG problems against the Dark Hunters. And you want her passive done. I like her as a skirmisher. Get those vulnerables out there, right? Luke Cage, really just the passive, and I like him as a fortifier. Iron Fist, just the passive as well. Some good healing. I like him as a healer. Though with these two characters, there is a world where you make Luke Cage a striker, and you make sure his gear tier and his res stars are higher than Iron Fist, so that in the Dark Hunters matchup, Luke Cage gets blinded and Iron Fist doesn't. That can cause problems because Iron Fist's ultimate still does quite a bit of damage, and that can make Colleen get in there and kill somebody before they get a turn. So keep in mind, if you want to try and do that gimmick, you need to build your Luke Cage up super high and limit how much you build your Iron Fist, because there is no undo button. So keep that in mind. Then for Colleen, everything but the basic, and we like her as a striker. If you decide to put the basics on Shang-Chi and on Colleen, it's going to help you, not hurt you. Same with the ultimate on Iron Fist and the ultimate and special on Misty. So if you're going really deep on it, those are some great T4s as well. As far as counters go, they're hard countered by the Weapon X team. Now there is a little bit of RNG in that. Silver Samurai, Sabretooth, and Omega Red, all other things being equal, have the same health. So if they have the same exact gear tier, the same exact star levels, they'll all have the same health, and that is what pulls in the ability block on Misty Knight's first turn. Sorry guys, I got an itchy nose. So be mindful of that if you're going into them with your Weapon X. You don't want your Omega Red to get ability blocked. It's not a deal breaker, but it makes the match more difficult. To stop that, make sure you hit Colleen with at least the tail end of Omega Red's special. He'll get counterattacked, drop below 100% life, and it'll always go to one of the other two. So that's how you can get over that. And then there's the Dark Hunters. If you're going to do the Dark Hunter team, that's obviously a 4-person team, I strongly recommend Namor as the 5th. He will always spawn with deflex, and his health pool is much higher than other characters that work, such as Hela and Falcon. Namor is the best 5th for them. And with your Dark Hunters, it doesn't matter where Luke Cage is positioned, always target one of the sides. You want that trauma to hit every single member on the Heroes for Hire team. Don't get greedy and go for the disrupt. You'll regret it. So yeah, pick one of the corners, chain all the way through. And then there's the soft counter. The Infinity Watch team, we were stuck with that matchup for quite a while, and everybody was very happy when we got away from it. It works on punch across, it can work on slight punch ups, and it can work on punch downs, and it can also fail on punch downs. It's a horrifying RNG nightmare matchup. Strongly recommend avoiding that, which is why you got to be very careful when you're using your Dark Hunters and your Weapon X team, if not on Heroes for Hire. Because if you get stuck having to do an Infinity Watch versus Heroes for Hire team, it can be painful. And guys, this is a very, very particular team because of their ridiculous opening mechanics where they get a bunch of speed and all their cooldowns refreshed. If you don't go in with one of these teams, you cannot clear this enemy team. If you don't go in with one of these counters, you cannot clear the Hero for Hire team. That's what I'm trying to say. And if your entire alliance did the same kind of mismatching where you no longer have one of these counters, you can literally lose a war by just not being able to kill Hero for Hire teams. Luckily, there's some more options being added. It looks like A-Force is going to counter them. Darkhold can counter them. If it's very, very, very small Heroes for Hire, your Secret Avengers and your Eternals can counter them. But, I mean, we're talking about this war defense video, so you know you're going to build them high if you're watching this and liking what you're hearing. But anyway, guys, that's number 2. We talked about that for way too long. That is the Heroes for Hire. Alright guys, coming in at number 1 is Dormhold. Yeah, Dormammu with the Darkhold team. Crazy, crazy team. Now, with the addition of the Darkhold, if people are using them on offense, no Dormammu team is safe, except for the Dormammu Darkhold team, which is why a lot of people are defaulting to it. It pretty much always pulls one win. There is a way to one-shot it. We'll talk briefly about that once I can iron out the kinks that I come across rarely. I will make sure to make a full video on it because I know that'll be very valued information for the community. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about it on the defensive perspective right now. Starting with the positioning, I like Wong on the far left, followed by Heartless, Agatha, Morgan, and Dormammu. Yes, this positioning gave me the hardest time, and it basically stems from the fact that in trying to control the enemy Morgan, you're likely to push the Dormammu below 50% life, and he gains that stealth with the immunity, and that becomes a problem, and then he's going to eventually pop off. So I like this positioning. For T4s, we talked about how this was going to be a war defense video, and so we were going to suggest war defensive T4s. That's why the rare T4s that are missing, let's just broad sweep, not Wong Special, not Heartless Basic, not Agatha Basic or Special. All of these T4s will actually increase the value of this team on war defense as well, pretty high. So they're very strong luxury picks. everything else should be T4'd. And because it's the arena team, you might as well T4 everything on them. I mean that. They're that good. And you will use all these abilities in the duration of this matchup because of the Dormammu res. So it's not like Heartless is never going to use his basic. In fact, he's probably going to use his basic more than once. So strongly recommend doing basically all of them. As far as ISOs go, I really like Striker on Wong, clearing more debuffs from the team. If he hits into a vulnerable target with his special or his ultimate, he's still doing at least one cleanse. Raider on Strange, he obviously has lots of crit built into his kit. It's just the best ISO for him by far. Then we have Agatha, and we definitely like her as a skirmisher. We want to land those debuffs, we want to get more vulnerables out there. Striker would be a strong pick for her, but then she's eating up those vulnerables from other people. But maybe we'll switch other people and make her a Striker. I don't particularly like that, but I can see people doing that. Then we have Morgan, definitely a Striker for her. It seems like in my testing, with 5 red stars now from the Scourge payout finally ending, she's not having a problem landing her ability block anymore. So I don't think she needs Skirmisher, but if you want to play it safe, Skirmisher is still an awesome choice. And if you're going to put Skirmisher on her, I suggest putting Striker on Agatha. Then we have Dormammu. Now Dormammu, I have him as a Striker here, but he would make a very good Skirmisher as well, especially if people are going to try and mirror match this. Then Skirmisher would be way better. I will be using him as Skirmisher in the arena because he has a hard time landing his stun on any of the Darkhold members because of their jacked up resistances. So if you're seeing that you have this on defense and they're losing to mirror matches, try and slot your Dormammu as a Skirmisher. It might help out. So that's the team. Let's talk about counters. There is no real hard counter. I am saying that the mirror matchup is a hard counter in the sense that you're playing it over the AI. But the coin flip at the beginning, if the Morgan lands her abilities on you, or if you get piled up on. If you get turn meter reround, and then Doctor Strange comes in, turn meter rerounds you again, and then Dormammu goes before you get to do anything, and now you have a stunned character as well, it could really pile up and get away from you. But the mirror matchup is one of the safest, if not the only safe way to get the one-shot. So if you're trying to one-shot it, you should probably have your Darkhold and Dormammu on offense instead of defense. Then there's this soft counter, Weapon X. I've been able to beat this on a punch across in practice consistently. I've been able to beat it on a 100k punch up in practice sporadically. That to me says that on live with war buffs, I should probably only take that matchup on 100 to 150k punch down. Because the defensive buffs from war outweigh the offensive buffs from war. It's just the way that barracks, cargo bay, and med bay add up. I'll give a brief talk through it, but like I said, I'm going to try and iron it out and make a whole video on it. So what you need to do is you need to have the full Weapon X team, you need the trauma. So we're going to put the ability block on Morgan, then we're going to target Wong with Sabretooth to give him Disrupt. This means when he uses his ultimate, he is going to transfer the negative effects, but he's not going to lose his negative effects, so he's not going to gain the taunt. He's going to hold on to that Disrupt still. And then we're going to rewind. Morgan is our top priority, followed by Strange, and then Agatha. You can't stop Agatha's ultimate from going off before your Omega Red second turn, but it doesn't hurt to rewind her to stop her stun from coming in any sooner. But definitely, if you have to choose between those three, you need to hit Morgan with the turn meter rewind. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit her again with Omega Red's ultimate. This is going to flip the buffs on Dormammu, and then you're going to be able to kill the Dormammu. You now have another ability block on Morgan, and you're playing from there. So we're going to kill the Dormammu. Even if he gets his special off, you'll have an opportunity, hopefully, if you haven't been hit by too many turn meter rewinds with your Silver Samurai, to put taunt up, and then he can soak up that stun from Dormammu. Otherwise, he might get his special off on somebody else, but with that defense down and that disrupt he has from being flipped on the Omega Red ultimate, you should be able to kill the Dormammu before his ultimate does too much damage to you. Now it's a race. You don't have to worry about the taunt, but you do have to worry about Agatha's passive stealth and the res. The best thing to do is to set up Morgan for the one and done kill from Silver Samurai ultimate. If you cannot do that, the best thing to do is to stun her. This is going to stop her passive from going off, so she's not giving that 10% speed bar to her members every time someone takes an ability, and then kill the other 3 members 2 times before turning your attention to the Morgan. I was able to do this very, very consistently on a punch across. It got away from me on the punch up though. If you want to be super safe about this though, the answer is a burner team. You're going to go ahead and throw Black Order in there. What the goal is to hit to use Thanos to hit Dormammu and drop him below 100% life. And then you might have to sit there for 5 minutes and let it time out. You go in with Weapon X after that, and it's an easy cleanup. So, what you need to be concerned with when doing this burner team is to not let Dormammu heal back up to 100% life before the match ends, which is why you might sit there and let it time out. Agatha's ultimate and Dormammu's abilities are the primary culprits in healing the damage you've done to the Dormammu and making your burner team useless. So, what I found happened organically is everybody died except for Thanos, and he had his ultimate up. And what I did is I basically let that happen, and I waited till there was 1 second left, hit the Thanos ultimate. It did a bunch of damage to everybody. The Dormammu was no longer at 100% life, and then I'd go in and clean up with Weapon X. If, though, you don't feel safe doing that because you're just concerned that Agatha or Dormammu are going to get their turn in, it's going to heal, or you're concerned that Agatha or Dormammu are going to get that turn and wipe you, your Thanos isn't going to live. It's just going to straight kill you. What you should do is you should attack with Thanos' opening ability, pause the game, and let it time out. It's not ideal in the race, but losing countless times to the same team instead of doing a proper burn attack to it is not ideal either. And this kind of headache this team gives is why they are, without a doubt, the #1 war defense team in the game right now. Let's go look at some teams that didn't make the cut. Alright guys, as promised, we have a couple teams we need to talk about. These teams would make this top 10 list very easily if they weren't absolutely necessary for offense. So we got to talk about them because they exist, and they would probably take positions 4, 5, 6, and 7 and push all the other teams down. So we have the Eternals team. You would have some kind of speed variation like we had in the arena for a while. Maybe, probably not Emma, right, because she's with Marauders now, but you could have Loki, Cable, and Hela, or somebody like that. And then what that's going to do is make them pull either a mirror matchup with the speed advantage or pull an Infinity Watch, and that would be a good use. Or they pull Weapon X. They'd pull a giant team. And then you have Weapon X, which is actually a nightmare matchup. Because if you have a big Weapon X in a room like Reactor or Bridge, it really, really messes with the mirror matchup. The mirror matchup already is kind of a coin toss, but you throw Bridge in there and the enemy Omega Red gets speed up, or gets immunity, or whatever the case may be, it can cause real problems. So Weapon X, an absolute nightmare on defense, but super necessary for your offense. And if we're being real, offense wins wars, not defense, right? You need to be able to clear the rooms, not just stop the enemy from clearing your rooms. Then we have Infinity Watch. Infinity Watch is very likely to find their way to defense soon. With all these new teams, especially these war offense teams like T4s coming to the game, Dark Hunters is in the game now that can do what Infinity Watch is needed to do better, right? Taking out the heroes for hire. The Darkhold came to the game. If you're not using them on defense, then you can definitely put your Infinity Watch on defense. They're going to be like Black Order soon. In 4 or 5 months, Infinity Watch will make this top 10 list, and they will be used on defense strictly and not on offense. And then there's Doom. Doom can be a very tricky matchup for some people. But the blueprint to counter Doom teams has been hammered home by so many people that he's actually kind of just a free win on defense now for teams like Shadowlands, Secret Avengers, X Factor, and big power armor teams and big X-Force teams can take him out very comfortably as well. That's why he didn't make this list. But under certain conditions, he can pull wins still. So that's why I'm including him in this. What about us? Would a Doom team with like Shuri, Invisible Woman, Drax, Star-Lord pull a couple wins here and there? it could against uninformed individuals, so certain people at certain war levels could still get wins out of Doom for sure. So I wanted to include him in this like honorable mentions list. But yeah, that's it. Alright guys, so that is the video. Did you notice my shirt change? Well, in the initial recording, my son woke up, came halfway through, and then I ended up going to play, staining that shirt, and having to switch out to new one. So if you caught that, good on you. I hope you liked this video. If you did, like, share, and subscribe. Stay happy, healthy, and have fun, guys, and I will check you guys later in the next one. Peace.